The proposition the rain hammered against the greenhouse glass as Olivia Reed carefully transferred the last seedling into its new pot. Outside, thunder cracked, masking the sound of her phone vibrating for the 7th time that morning. Eventually, she wiped her soil-stained hands on her apron and checked the screen. 7 missed calls from her bank, plus an email notification that made her stomach clench. Final notice. Foreclosure proceedings. Olivia's Botanical Research Center had been struggling for months. Grants had dried up, private funding had disappeared, and her life's work cultivating rare medicinal plants that pharmaceutical companies deemed unprofitable was weeks away from ending. She leaned against the workbench, inhaling the earthy scents around her. 6 years of research, collection, and cultivation, all about to vanish because she couldn't balance passion with practicality. The 8th call came as she was locking up. This time, it wasn't the bank. Olivia Reed. My name is Georgina Winters. I represent Harrison Blake. Olivia nearly dropped her keys. Everyone knew Harrison Blake, founder of Nexus Technologies and one of the most elusive billionaires in the country. His innovations in sustainable energy had revolutionized entire industries, but he was notorious for his reclusiveness, I think. You have the wrong number, Olivia said. No mistake. Mr. Blake would like to meet with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. The matter is unusual but potentially beneficial to your current situation. The next afternoon found Olivia in the gleaming Nexus headquarters, 90 floors above the city. She felt painfully out of place in her only presentable outfit, a simple navy dress that had seen better days surrounded by glass, steel, and people who looked like they'd never touched soil in their lives. Harrison Blake wasn't what she expected. Tall and lean, with silver-streaked dark hair and observant gray eyes that seemed to evaluate everything with clinical precision. No warmth, just calculation. "Thank you for coming, Dr. Reed," he said, gesturing toward a chair. "I'm not actually a doctor," she corrected automatically. "It's just a botanist with too much student debt and not enough sense." Something flickered across his face, amusement, perhaps before vanishing. "I'll be direct," he said. "I need to marry someone within 30 days. Olivia blinked. "Excuse me? It's a business matter. The Jensen acquisition requires me to be married. Family values are important to old Theodore Jensen, and he won't sell to a bachelor. ... Archaic. Indeed. But his company has patents. I need." Harrison slid a folder across the table. "I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement. It's a marriage contract for 2 years. You'll have a generous allowance, separate living quarters in my home, and at the end, a settlement that would fund your research for a decade." Olivia's fingers trembled as she opened the folder. The figures made her dizzy. "Why me? You're intelligent, respected in your field, without complicated family ties," and he paused. "In need of immediate financial assistance, you researched me thoroughly." She should have been offended. Instead, desperation made her practical. "What's the catch?" "Complete discretion, the appearance of a functional marriage, attendance at necessary events, nothing. Intimate." He spoke the last word as if it were a foreign concept. "And after 2 years, an amicable divorce, you continue your work? I continue mine." Olivia stared at the contract. Her research center would survive. The rare plants she'd spent years collecting wouldn't be discarded. The potential medicines they might yield wouldn't be lost. "Do you need time to consider?" Harrison asked. "No," Olivia said quietly. "I don't have that luxury anymore." 3 weeks later, Olivia stood in a private judge's chambers, saying "I do" to a stranger while signing away 2 years of her life, wondering if she'd just made a brilliant decision or the biggest mistake of her existence. Silent corridors, the east wing of Harrison Blake's modernist mansion, became Olivia's sanctuary over the following weeks. True to his word, she had her own suite of rooms, a bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the cliffside property, a sitting room, and most importantly, a small attached greenhouse, where she'd transferred her most precious specimens. Harrison proved to be more ghost than husband. Their interactions were brief, polite, and strictly business. Would sometimes hear him returning late at night, footsteps echoing down the marble hallway before his office door closed with a soft click. Other times, he'd be gone for days, leaving only short messages with his housekeeper Judith? He's always been this way, Judith, told Olivia one morning as she delivered breakfast. The older woman had worked for Harrison for 15 years and seemed to be the only person who spoke of him with genuine affection. Even as a young man, always wrapped up in his work, never letting anyone too close. Olivia nodded, not sure if she should admit that the arrangement suited her perfectly. Her days were now filled with uninterrupted research, freed from financial worries. She'd even hired an assistant to help maintain the specimens at her old greenhouse in the city. Yet as autumn settled over the coastal property, Olivia found herself wandering the mansion during sleepless nights, curious about the man she had legally bound herself to. Harrison's home revealed little minimalist furnishings. Its abstract art and technology so seamlessly integrated, it was nearly invisible. No family photos, no mementos. Nothing personal except his extensive library, filled with books on engineering, physics, and surprisingly, botanical medicine. It was during one such midnight exploration that Olivia first noticed the discrepancy in the mansion's layout. The western corridor should have extended further than it appeared to from the inside. There was space unaccounted for, a significant amount. Her curiosity piqued. She began paying more attention to Harrison's movements. Twice she observed him disappearing down that corridor late at night, returning hours later looking exhausted. Once, she thought she caught the scent of soil and greenery on him as he passed her in the hallway at breakfast. Impossible for someone who claimed to spend his nights working on technical specifications. Does Mr. Blake garden? She asked Judith. Casually the next day, the housekeeper's hands paused momentarily while arranging flowers. Not anymore, she answered, then quickly changed the subject. 3 months into their arrangement, Olivia was scheduled to attend her first public event, as Mrs. Blake, a charity gala for environmental conservation. Harrison had a custom gown delivered to her room, along with a note outlining the key people they would need to impress, particularly Theodore Jensen and his wife. You clean up well, Harrison commented when she descended the stairs that evening, the emerald dress complementing her auburn hair. As do you, she replied, surprised to find it true. In his tailored tuxedo, with his usual intensity, softened by the dim light, Harrison was undeniably handsome. The evening progressed as choreographed. Olivia smiled and charmed, speaking passionately about conservation to anyone who would listen. Harrison remained by her side, his hand occasionally resting lightly on her back. The first physical contact they'd shared since a brief, ceremonial kiss at their wedding. To her surprise, she found herself responding to his touch, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the champagne. Later, as they danced for the benefit of watchful eyes, Harrison leaned close. Jensen is impressed. The acquisition is nearly secured. Glad to be of service, Olivia replied, more stiffly than intended. Something shifted in Harrison's expression. That came out wrong, I meant... Thank you. You're doing more than our agreement required. The unexpected acknowledgement caught her off guard. You're welcome. Ow. They drove home in silence, but it was different, now charged with something unspoken. As they entered the mansion, Harrison checked his watch. I have work to attend to, he said, already turning toward the western corridor. Perhaps it was the champagne, with the lingering warmth of his hand on her back during their dance, but Olivia found herself asking, What's down there, Harrison? That corridor doesn't match the exterior dimensions of the house. He froze. When he turned, his expression had completely closed. Nothing that concerns our arrangement. We live in the same house. I'm just curious. Curiosity isn't part of our contract. His voice was ice. Good night, Olivia. The next morning, Harrison left for a week-long business trip abroad. Before departing, he instructed Judith that the western corridor was strictly off-limits for maintenance while he was away. Olivia tried to focus on her work, but the mystery nagged at her. Whatever lay beyond that corridor clearly mattered deeply. To Harrison, perhaps the only thing that did. And despite her best efforts to maintain professional detachment, she found herself increasingly drawn to understanding the complex man. She had married in name only. On the third night of Harrison's absence, Olivia was startled awake by alarms blaring throughout the house. The automated system announced, Environmental alert in West Sector. Critical temperature fluctuation. Judith was visiting her sister overnight. Olivia was alone, and whatever protected system had failed, it sounded serious. She grabbed her robe and rushed toward the forbidden corridor, heart pounding. At its end stood a sleek metal door with a key pedant to her shock. It was slightly ajar, emergency lights flashing within. Olivia pushed it open and gasped. A massive greenhouse stretched before her, 3 times the size of her research space. Sophisticated climate control systems lined the walls, and specialized growing chambers housed hundreds of plants, many species she recognized as extremely rare or thought extinct. The central environmental system was flashing red warnings, temperature rising critically in Sector 4. Without hesitation, Olivia rushed to the control panel, her years of experience kicking in. The backup cooling system had failed, threatening an entire section of heat-sensitive specimens. Working quickly, she overrode the automated settings, manually adjusting the parameters until the warnings ceased and the system stabilized. Only then did she step back and truly absorb what surrounded her. This wasn't just any collection. These were specifically medicinal plants, many used in traditional remedies for degenerative diseases. Some she had sought for years without success. All were meticulously maintained with scientific precision. In the center of the greenhouse stood a small desk with research journals stacked neatly beside sophisticated microscopes and analysis equipment. Olivia approached slowly, drawn by professional curiosity and something deeper. The top journal was labeled simply, Project Camille Year 7. She opened it and began to read. Seeds of doubt, the morning sun streamed through the greenhouse glass as Olivia turned the final page of the journal. She had spent the entire night reading, unable to tear herself away from the meticulously documented research. Her back ached from hours hunched over the desk, but her mind was racing too fast to register the discomfort. The journal detailed groundbreaking work on plant-derived compounds that could potentially treat neurodegenerative diseases. The scientific approach was brilliant, innovative and hauntingly familiar. The methodology mirrored techniques that Olivia had learned years ago from her mentor, Professor Eleanor Blackwood. Before their falling out, had driven Olivia to establish her own research center. More disturbing were the personal notes interspersed throughout the technical data. They revealed a side of Harrison Blake that contradicted everything she thought she knew about her. Contractual husband. Camille's tremors worsened today. The standard treatments are failing faster than anticipated. Time is becoming our enemy. Eleanor believes the Ophioglossum extract shows promise. First synthesis attempt scheduled for tomorrow. Another failure. Camille insists I shouldn't neglect the company while focusing on this research, as if anything matters more than finding a cure. Eleanor. The brilliant, demanding professor who had shaped Olivia's early career before their bitter disagreement about research commercialization, had severed their relationship. And Camille, who was she? Harrison had never mentioned anyone by that name. Olivia carefully returned the journal to its exact position and continued exploring the greenhouse. Unlike her chaotic, underfunded lab, every aspect of this facility reflected precision and limitless resources. Climate-controlled chambers housed species from different global regions. Sophisticated hydroponic systems nurtured aquatic specimens. A specialized propagation area contained seedlings of plants she had believed extinct. In the furthest corner, partially hidden behind tropical foliage, she discovered a small sitting area with a weathered armchair. A framed photograph, only personal item in the entire greenhouse. Olivia picked it up, her hands trembling slightly. The photo showed a younger Harrison, perhaps in his early 30s, his arm around a woman with his same gray eyes and serious expression, though hers was softened by a hint of mischief. They stood in front of a university building, both wearing lab coats. The woman Camille Olivia presumed held a research award. The inscription read, Blake Siblings, Northeastern University Medical Center, 2012. A sister. Harrison had a sister he had never mentioned. Next to the photo lay a silver key attached to a small compass. Olivia recognized it immediately, an exact match to the unique pendant Professor Eleanor always wore around her neck. "To guide your research when you feel lost," Eleanor had once told her. The pieces began falling into place, forming a picture that made Olivia's heart ache. Harrison's sister had suffered from a degenerative condition. He and Eleanor had worked together seeking a botanical cure. But something had gone wrong. The treatment had failed. Judging by the absence of Camille and the layer of dust on her photograph, Olivia carefully returned everything to its place and left the greenhouse, securing the door behind her. She spent the next 3 days in turmoil, questioning whether to confront Harrison about her discovery or pretend she had never entered the forbidden space. Their marriage was a business arrangement, after all. His personal heartbreak was not her concern, yet she couldn't stop thinking about the journals. The research that paralleled her own, and the desperation evident in Harrison's notes. The man who had seemed so cold and detached had poured his soul and fortune into saving someone he loved. When Harrison returned from his trip, Olivia immediately sensed something was wrong. He was paler than usual, with dark circles under his eyes. He nodded distractedly when she greeted him in the foyer, then headed straight for the western corridor. Minutes later, he stormed into her greenhouse, eyes blazing. "You were in there?" he said, voice dangerously quiet. The environmental system recorded an override using manual protocols only a botanist would know. Olivia stood her ground. There was an alarm. The cooling system failed. Did what was necessary to save your specimens. Those plants are none of your concern. "Actually, they are exactly my concern," Olivia countered, her scientific passion overriding her caution. "You have species I've searched for across 3 continents. You're conducting research that parallels my life's work. And you're doing it with Eleanor Blackwood's methodologies." Harrison flinched at the name. "You know, Eleanor, she was my mentor. Before we disagreed on whether life-saving medicines should be patented and priced beyond reach." Olivia took a deep breath. "Harrison, who is Camille?" The color drained from his face. He gripped the edge of her workbench, knuckles white. For a moment, Olivia thought he might collapse. "My sister," he finally said, voice hollow. "She died 3 years ago from Hartman's disease. We spent 7 years trying to find a treatment. Eleanor and I, we failed." And the anguish in his voice stripped away all pretense between them. This wasn't the calculated businessman she had married on paper. This was a man broken by loss, driven by guilt and desperation. "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "Truly?" Harrison straightened, his mask slipping back into place. "Your apology is unnecessary, as is your involvement in matters that don't concern our arrangement. Is that why you married me?" Olivia asked suddenly. "Because of my botanical research? Did Eleanor suggest me?" His silence was answer enough. "I haven't spoken to Eleanor in years," Harrison finally said. "Our partnership ended when Camille died. She wanted to continue the research. I couldn't bear to, not without purpose. Yet you've maintained that greenhouse like a shrine." "Old habits," he said dismissively, but his eyes betrayed him. Olivia made a decision, then one not covered in their carefully worded contract. "Show me your research, Harrison. All of it." "I might see something you missed." "Why would you help?" "This isn't part of our deal." "Because those plants represent potential medicines that could help thousands. Because I've dedicated my life to proving that nature holds cures we haven't yet discovered." She paused. "And because no one should have to face that kind of loss alone." Harrison studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. That night, Olivia found a file outside her door containing all 7 years of Project Camille's research data. It was the first of many barriers between them that would begin to crumble. Withered truth's winter descended on the coastal mansion, bringing fierce storms that lashed against the windows and shrouded the property in perpetual twilight. Inside, another kind of storm was brewing as Olivia and Harrison found themselves navigating uncharted emotional territory for 3 weeks. They had worked side by side in the previously forbidden greenhouse, methodically reviewing years of research. Their professional dynamic was seamless, Harrison's analytical precision, complementing Olivia's intuitive understanding of botanical properties. They spoke the shared language of scientific inquiry, each recognizing in the other a formidable intellect. Yet, beneath this collaboration lay currents of unspoken questions and revelations that threatened the neat boundaries of their arrangement. "Think you abandoned a promising direction here," Olivia said one evening, pointing to a research pathway from year 5. The alkaloid extraction method was innovative, but the stabilization process needed refinement. Harrison rubbed his tired eyes. "We tried 14 variations. None maintained potency long enough for clinical application. But you were using standard pharmaceutical stabilizers." "My research with endemic fungi shows potential for natural preservative compounds that might be considered mycological applications," Harrison interrupted. Eleanor dismissed them as too unpredictable. The mention of Eleanor still created tension between them. Olivia had pieced together that Harrison and her former mentor had worked together intensively during Camille's illness. But something had shattered their partnership after her death. Harrison refused to elaborate, changing the subject whenever Eleanor's name arose. As the clock struck midnight, Olivia stretched her aching back. "We should rest. Fresh perspectives tomorrow." Harrison nodded absently, still absorbed in recalculating enzyme ratios. In these moments, focused purely on the work, his features softened, and Olivia caught glimpses of the passionate person beneath the controlled exterior, the brother, who had loved his sister enough to devote years to saving her. "Why did you really choose me?" she asked suddenly. The question had lingered since discovering the greenhouse. Was it just my botanical expertise, or was there more? Harrison looked up, startled by the directness. After a long pause, he answered, "Both. I researched potential partners thoroughly. Your work showed promise, and your financial situation made you likely to accept my proposal." He hesitated. "Yes, your connection to Eleanor was relevant, though not in the way you might think." "Explain." "Eleanor recommended your research years ago when you were still her student. She said you had insights that might help Camille." His expression darkened. "After my sister died, Eleanor wanted to commercialize our incomplete findings. I refused. Some things shouldn't be profit-driven." Olivia felt her world tilt. "You opposed commercialization, but you're a capitalist?" His smile was bitter. "In technology, yes. That should benefit everyone or no one." The revelation struck Olivia like a physical blow. She had misjudged him completely, assuming his wealth meant alignment with pharmaceutical profiteering. More disturbing was the realization that her fallout with Eleanor, this very issue of research commercialization, had been based on principles Harrison apparently shared. "I need air," she said abruptly, heading for the greenhouse door. Outside, the storm had intensified. Olivia stood on the covered patio, watching lightning illuminate the churning ocean below the cliffs. She didn't hear Harrison approach until he draped a blanket over her shoulders. "You'll catch cold," he said simply, keeping a careful distance. "My argument with Eleanor," Olivia said without preamble. "It was about patenting botanical compounds. She wanted exclusive licensing agreements with pharmaceutical companies. Believed the research should be open source, accessible to all researchers." She turned to face him. "I left rather than compromise. Started my own underfunded lab to prove that effective medicines could be developed without profit motives." Understanding dawned in Harrison's eyes. "We've been on the same side all along." "That seems so." Olivia pulled the blanket tighter. "What happened between you and Eleanor after Camille died?" The pain that flashed across Harrison's face made her regret the question immediately. "She moved too quickly," he said finally. "Camille wasn't even buried when Eleanor presented partnership agreements with Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Said we owed it to other patients to commercialize our partial findings." His voice grew harsh. "I just lost my sister, my only family, and she was negotiating profit percentages. So you ended the research entirely." "I maintained the greenhouse, preserved the specimens. But I couldn't continue without Camille." Harrison looked out at the storm. "Eleanor didn't understand that for me, the research was always about saving my sister, not changing the world." "And yet you've kept everything," Olivia observed softly. "Part of you hasn't given up." Harrison was silent for so long that Olivia thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Above the wind, Camille made me promise. The night before she died, when we both knew the treatments had failed, she made me swear I would eventually continue, that her death wouldn't be meaningless. His shoulders sagged with the weight of memory. I've broken that promise for 3 years. Without thinking, Olivia reached for his hand, entwining her fingers with his. He stiffened momentarily, then relaxed into the contact, their first genuine touch since the charity gala months ago. "Tell me about her," Olivia whispered. And there, with the storm raging around them, Harrison finally spoke of Camille, brilliant neuroscientist, fierce environmental advocate, and the only person who had seen beyond his carefully constructed walls. He described her laugh, her stubbornness, her refusal to be defined by her illness, even as it stole her mobility and eventually her life. "She would have liked you," he concluded, his voice rough with emotion. "She always said I needed someone who wouldn't let me retreat into isolation." The implications of that statement hung between them, acknowledged but not addressed. Their hands remained linked as they watched the storm gradually subside. Revealing a sky scattered with stars, the next morning, a registered letter arrived for Olivia. The return address made her blood run cold. Professor Eleanor Blackwood, Department of Botanical Medicine, Northeastern University. Inside was a brief note and a flash drive. "Olivia, I've followed your marriage with interest. Harrison doesn't know that Camille contacted me before her death, sharing breakthrough findings she kept from him to spare his hopes. The attached data might complete what we started. Camille believed you would someday continue our work. Saw your research before either of us connected the dots. Truth has many layers. It's time Harrison knew everything." Olivia stared at the flash drive, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. She had been no random choice for Harrison's contractual marriage. She had been selected, perhaps even maneuvered into financial distress as part of a plan. Years in the making, the question was, had Harrison been architect or unwitting participant? New growth spring arrived with unexpected gentleness, coaxing delicate buds from dormant branches and warming the cliffside with golden light. In the expanded greenhouse, now twice its original size after Harrison had renovations completed, Olivia carefully transferred seedlings from their germination trays while monitoring the latest test results on her tablet. The third-generation synthesis is showing 86% receptor binding, she announced as Harrison entered with their morning coffee, a ritual that had evolved naturally over the past 2 months. "That's our best result yet." Harrison placed her mug, the oversized ceramic one with botanical illustrations that he'd given her for her birthday, beside her workstation. "The stability markers? Holding at acceptable levels past the 72-hour mark?" Olivia straightened, accepting the coffee with a smile that still carried traces of disbelief at how much had changed between them. "I think we're ready for preliminary efficacy testing." Harrison's expression remained cautious, the scientist in him always tempering optimism with methodical skepticism, but she caught the flicker of hope in his eyes. "I'll contact Dr. Faulkner at the university. Her lab has the cellular models we need," Olivia nodded, sipping her coffee while watching Harrison review the data. The past 3 months had transformed everything about their relationship beginning. With the revelations contained on Eleanor's flash drive, the information had indeed been explosive. Camille Blake, in her final weeks, had made a breakthrough in stabilizing the plant compounds, but had hidden her findings from Harrison, knowing he would push himself to exhaustion, pursuing a cure that would come too late for her. Instead, she had secretly sent her research to Eleanor with instructions to continue the work and eventually bring in Olivia Reed, whose unconventional approaches to botanical medicine Camille had admired from afar. What neither woman could have predicted was Eleanor's decision to commercialize the research against Camille's wishes, leading to her falling out with both Harrison and later Olivia. The confrontation when Olivia had shown Harrison the flash drive had been seismic. His initial reaction, cold fury at what he perceived as manipulation, had given way to grief-stricken awe at his sister's final scientific gift. He had disappeared for 2 days afterward, returning haggard but resolved to honor Camille's wishes by continuing the research properly this time, with Olivia as a true partner. Their contractual marriage had evolved into something neither had anticipated, a research partnership founded on shared values and growing personal connection. The walls between them had crumbled, gradually first intellectual, then emotional. "You're staring," Harrison observed, without looking up from the tablet. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Olivia replied, moving to stand beside him. "From a business arrangement to ... this." Harrison set down the tablet and turned to face her, his expression serious. "Our contract expires next month." The reminder sent an unexpected pang through Olivia's chest. Despite everything that had changed between them, the legal framework of their relationship remained bound by that initial 2-year agreement. "I've been meaning to discuss that," she said carefully. "The research is at a critical phase. Disruption now would be problematic." "Very problematic," Harrison agreed, his tone equally measured. They had become experts at cloaking deeper emotions. "In practical considerations, contract extension might be sensible," Olivia suggested. "For the research?" Harrison studied her face, then reached out to tuck a stray curl behind her ear, the kind of casual intimacy that had gradually become natural between them. "Is that what you want? An extension of terms?" The question hung between them, waited. With unspoken meaning, Olivia thought of their journey from strangers bound by signatures to partners united by purpose. She thought of late nights in the greenhouse, theoretical debates over dinner, and the gradual surprising discovery that Harrison Blake was nothing like the cold businessman she had married on paper. "No," she said finally. "I don't want an extension." "Harrison's." Hand dropped, his expression closing. "I understand." "You don't," Olivia continued, gathering courage. "I don't want to extend our contract because I don't want a contract at all anymore. Whatever happens between us now, whether we continue this research together, whether we build something beyond professional partnership, I want it to be chosen freely, not bound by legal obligation." Hope flickered in Harrison's eyes, quickly guarded. "And what would you choose, if not constrained by our agreement?" Instead of answering with words, Olivia closed the distance between them, rising on tiptoes too, press her lips gently against his. Unlike their ceremonial wedding kiss performed for appearances, this was tentative, questioning, real. After a moment of surprise, Harrison responded, his arms encircling her waist as he deepened the kiss. When they finally parted, the wonder in his expression mirrored her own. "I would choose you," she whispered, "contract or no contract, even knowing how this began. The manipulation, the secrets, especially knowing that Olivia said firmly, we've both seen the worst of each other's defenses and the best of each other's intentions. There's freedom in that kind of knowledge." Harrison rested his forehead against hers. "I never expected this outcome when I proposed our arrangement, nor did I when I accepted it. Camille would be laughing at us right now," he said, a smile softening his features. "She always said I overthought everything." "Smart woman, your sister." Olivia laced her fingers with his. "I wish I could have known her. In many ways you do." Through her research, her vision, Harrison gestured toward the thriving greenhouse around them. "Through what we're building together," the tablet chimed with incoming test results, drawing their attention back to the work that had brought them together and would now carry them forward, no longer bound by contract, but by something far stronger. Later that evening, as sunset painted the cliffside in amber and rose, Harrison and Olivia sat on the patio overlooking the ocean, discussing plans to establish a non-profit research institute dedicated to developing plant-based medicines accessible to all. They would name it the Camille Blake Foundation. "I received a message from Eleanor this morning," Harrison said as twilight deepened around them. "She's requested a meeting." Olivia tensed. Their former mentor remained a complicated figure in both their lives, manipulative yet brilliant. Wrong in her methods, but right in her belief that their combined work held importance beyond personal vendettas. "What did you tell her? That we would meet her, together?" Harrison's hand found Olivia's in the gathering darkness. "Some bridges are worth rebuilding, even if they can never be the same." Olivia nodded, understanding the broader meaning in his words. Like the plants they studied, relationships could be damaged, even appear destroyed, yet still contained the capacity for new growth under the right conditions. Their contract had been the seed unexpected, pragmatic, containing potential. Neither had recognized. What had grown from it was something entirely different, a partnership rooted in shared purpose and blooming, against all odds, into love. As night enveloped the coastal property, lights automatically illuminated the expanded greenhouse, revealing the flourishing research inside a legacy of loss transformed into hope, and a testament to what could grow when business gave way to something far more binding than signatures on paper.